Thank you very much for staying. Welcome back. Now, Senior Minister Yaw Osafo has justified moves by government to separate the operations of the Volta River Authority, VRA, to enable the private sector take control of thermal management, whilst government maintains full control of the hydro division. Explaining some government policy measures for the year 2017 at a post-budget forum in Accra, Yaw Osafo noted this will make VRA effective and financially sustainable. He explains VRA, per the new arrangement, will concentrate on the operations of the Konsombo Hydro Dam and the Bui Hydro Power.
Banks are literally paralyzed because they can't lend because of bad loans, bad debt. Most of them not through the faults of the banks, through the government, because we have forced them to lend to parastatals like VRA, this, that. And we all sit watching. Crude oil, so give them the LC, then they organize it for them. The banks are no more able to even service those loans. And therefore, they cannot service the private sector. So it is important at the same time in this budget to make sure that the banks are able to lend. Otherwise, we cannot do the growth we are talking about. We cannot go from the 3.6 to 6.3. So we think about, look, the sacred cow along the line, we have to be looked at. VRA, you are a hydro expert. You've done an excellent job in the past. Combining thermal with VRA doesn't involve the same technology. It's time we call a spade a spade. Let's separate the two. Thermal units we put together, take steps to privatize them. We are going to do exactly that. Hydro, let's add the other one, what do you call it? The one in the north, not north, Buranhafu. Bui, let's add Bui to Akosombo, both hydro, Akosombo handle it. So we begin to rationalize some of these things. And I think for a country, to me, this budget is all-purpose vehicle budget.
And meanwhile, the senior minister is certain the falling trend of the Ghana cedi's depreciation against the major trading currencies will cease before the end of March. According to him, the current challenge of the local currency is attributable to the poor economy which the National Democratic Congress government left behind. Mr. Osafo says policy initiatives outlined in the budget statement delivered by the Finance Minister Ken Ofori-Atta will help stabilize the currency by the end of the month after the markets begin to respond. He was speaking with Joseph Opoku-Gaku.
This budget is the best that has happened to Ghana for many years. And it is not because I belong to the government, but because the facts are there. The government inherited a deficit of 10.3% of GDP. You know what that means? And a growth of 3.6%. Don't forget that when Kufuor was living, the growth was 9.2%. Now growth has declined to 3.6 with oil. At Kufuor's time, there was no oil. So if the economy grew by about 9% without oil, and the economy is growing at 3.6, then there's a problem with oil. And the budget did about 3 things in a row, and I want you to listen very carefully. Now, the budget recognized that we have a very serious problem with unemployment, and therefore, you cannot get a budget that does not grow the economy. So the budget has grown the economy from 3.6 to 6.3. He has turned the figures down from 3.6 to 6.3. So this economy is this budget is expansionist. It's expanding. There's growth.
You said you're going to scrap. They said you're going to scrap the energy sector levy, which they say did not happen in the budget.
They didn't read the budget thoroughly. Every political party has a 4-year cycle. We have done 1-year budget out of 4. So if I make 10 pledges, and in one budget I fulfill 6, and you say I'm running away from pledges, then either you don't understand or I don't understand. But I think you don't. We are fighting an election that is based on a 4-year cycle. And I made promises in a manifesto which was used to fight the election. And that manifesto was my manifesto for the next 4 years.
So we can expect that going forward, then the energy sector levy
Forward,
will still be scrapped.
we would tackle other problems. If anybody thinks that all the pledges of government will be fulfilled in 1 year, then you are being Ethiopian. To stabilize. It has to stabilize. You are not likely the city to appreciate against the dollar. No. That will be Ethiopian. The city will stabilize. So if we are at 4.4, it will begin to stabilize around that number, and that will be all right. Because we have at the end of our program a 3.6 months reserves. That's what the budget has projected. The city to stabilize.
Now, moving on, government will have some challenges in securing the required funds to sustain its free senior high school policy. There's a warning coming from the Institute of Statistical, Social and Economic Research, ISSER. Now, the institute gave the warning at a program to review policies outlined in the 2017 budget. Here's Dr. Charles Aka, a fellow of ISSER and also an economist.
It's a good idea. To be honest, free SHS, free university education, free primary education, they're all good if we can afford it. I think the concern that we are raising is that we don't have a full picture of how much it's going to cost comprehensively going forward from 2017 going. And we don't have a full understanding whether we are prepared, because this is going to lead to enrollment, high increase in enrollment. So whether we have enough facilities and teachers and stuff. But also we are also concerned that given that this is the first budget of the government and they have taken over an economy that is wobbling, economy that has been in a recession for about 4 or 5 years, growth has fallen to 3.6%, and the government feels that they need to make good all the promises they've made, and they have done a lot already, given a lot of incentives, so they're losing a lot of money already from the incentives. Could it have been possible to delay the start of that policy, even though it's a good thing, to maybe next year or next 2 years? If it's possible, why not? But if they think that they have the resource envelope to be able to do that this year, we support it. It remains to be seen whether the resource envelope is going to come in, because despite all the decreases in taxes, the government still expects to raise about 11 more billion Ghana cedi than 2016. And all of this is hinged on the performance of the economy, that the private sector is going to respond to the incentives to expand business and expand jobs, and therefore they can get some taxes from the revenues that are the expansion of the economy. If the economy fails to expand, for example, touchwood, they're expecting that we should grow at 6.5%. If something goes wrong, if we have a global crisis that fits into our economy, if American economy doesn't do well and China doesn't do well and Europe, Brexit has negative consequences, and we don't grow at 6.5%. If, say, we grow at 4%, 4.5%, it means that the revenue targets will not be met. If they are not met, then what happened to SHS? What happened to the free secondary school? What happened to the one
Speaking from the perspective of an analyst, and yes, it's good, do you think that, yes, they can go ahead and implement it, but do you see a funding challenge going forward in sustaining this program, and therefore will you wish that it is postponed?
No, we don't wish it's postponed. We are asking questions. Because we are not working in government, we don't really know what they have. But we think it's a good thing. But as to whether we are prepared and ready to start it this year, we don't have all the information in our and it's going to put a kind of a strain, to be honest, on the budget. But they understand, if you look at the allocations, the money seems to be there. It's as if they're expecting it. Because, for example, if you see how much they say they want to reduce corruption, how much they want to save from interest payment. Interest payment alone is about 13 billion Ghana cedi. And they're saying the free SHS is going to cost about, 400 million or so?
Or even more than that, per the analysis.
Yeah, so let's say even 1 billion. And you are paying 13 billion every year for interest, just for the loans that we have taken. So which means that if we cut down on our penchant for borrowing, which means that there's some 13 billion cedis in this economy that we have every year to give to creditors who have lent to us. If we save that, then it means we can do even free university education.
Away from that, the new Commissioner General of the Ghana Revenue Authority, Emmanuel Kofinti, says the authority will be adopting more business-friendly strategies in tax collection following government's decision to be hard on compliance as well as the decision to abolish some taxes. There are fears the revenue agency will be tough on firms when it comes to tax payments. But Ms. N.T. tells Joy Business this is rather different.
We are going to treat the taxpayer as a customer. A customer well treated interact positively with the system, so that we are trying to know our customer. I mean, the banks have it. Know your customer, KYC. I don't think we know our customers well enough. Going forward, we would want to know our customers even more. And as we know them more, we know their businesses, the things that they do, it helps us to interact. And when the customer knows that you are there for him, the customer will give a positive reaction to the thing that you do with him. And so going forward, we will be more interactive with the customers.
What other different things are you also going to do to meet the 44 billion, if that there's minus the grants, there's the tax revenue bit, so that you can meet it maybe even before the year ends?
You know the example the minister gave, where there was something 33,000. And by interaction and 1,000 going somewhere, at the end of the day, he got it for 8,000. We would want to do mechanisms that would ensure that the proper rates are collected for the system. Okay, when you take the self-employed, the informal sector, they're making like just about 4% of the direct tax. Look at the numbers in that area. We would want a situation where we beef up the interaction and then the collection, the self-employed. Possibly move it to like 10%. And we are going to be focused on performance at the local levels. Okay, so that at the end of the day, when you look at it, the LTO picks about 66% of the bill, of the revenues. It means that the rest in totality contribute about 34%. That shouldn't be the case. We want a situation where we will be able to tell the linkage between the staff, expenditure on the staff at the local level, and the kind of revenue is coming at the local level. And when that is being done at the staff at the local level, the staff know that he's being an expense on the system. Nobody needs telling them they have to back up. These are some of the ways we would use to try and beef up revenue.
And in a related development, another tax expert has downplayed any negative impact of the tax cuts on government's revenue. Vish Ashagbo is senior country partner at PricewaterhouseCoopers.
Cuts in taxes means potentially less revenue to government, but it's a fine balance, because if those tax cuts are going to encourage more business activity, then what you have is increased volumes. So the rate may be lower, or in some cases may not be there, but because there's more activity and more throughput and more volume, you should in principle be able to make overall more. So as the minister said when he spoke, the other thing the government is looking to do is to strengthen compliance. So he gave the example of the ports. So if you take all of those into consideration, perhaps if we can indeed strengthen compliance and therefore get more from there, what we get may actually end up compensating for those taxes that are being taken away. But then it has the added benefit of encouraging private business and private sector to take the lead in the economy.
Are you convinced by those measures that they are outlining to make up for these cuts?
Well, we believe it will be difficult. We don't believe by any means, or we're not under any illusion that it's going to be an easy thing to accomplish. And I think the government itself appreciates that, because again, if you heard the minister and the kind of expectation that he and his team have of the Ghana Revenue Authority in terms of their monitoring, their compliance, etc., I think there's a recognition that it will not be easy. But we do have to do something. And it's better to have bold targets and bold ambitions, because then at least you begin to make progress.
Now moving on, CEO of Dalex Finance, Ken Thompson, has urged government to honor its word by making agriculture a priority to enhance its job creation agenda. He's also advocating a devaluation of the Ghana cedi. This, he says, will fix the current broken economy. Ken Thompson stated this in an interview with Insurado on the business leadership program, the Executive Lounge. Here are excerpts.
The two things that concern me most about Ghana now is the unemployment and is the value of the cedi in people's pockets. Because you can't build a nation where the person whose salary cannot pay his transport, cannot rent, cannot pay medical bills, extra. You don't have a life. We've become respectable poor. The two things that I'll do, and I've said this so many times, I'll start to invest in agriculture. Because if you invest in agriculture all along the value chain, you're going to create a lot of jobs. Alongside giving that support for agriculture, I will start to devalue the cedi. Because cedi is overvalued. I mean, I've said this so many times. You know, in 2013, I talked about the cedi. 2014, 15, 16, 2014, I talked about cedi. I said about valuation. I said, let's do agriculture. In 2015, I said we're heading for a crash. In 2016, I said the economy was broken. You can't start to talk certain things to a man who's hungry. That's fine. So the two things that concern me, I'll start to invest in agriculture to create jobs and increase the value of the cedi in people's pockets. That's the first thing I'll do. And as part of my measures to increase investment in agriculture and increase food production, I'll start to devalue the cedi to make farming competitive. Once I've solved that problem, and that will solve Ghana's unemployment problem, solve our exchange rate problems. Once I've solved that problem, I'll start to do other things. But you can't start to preach to people who are hungry. And we're hungry. Our children are home with nothing to do, and there are no prospects. So you can't start to talk big English. Create jobs. Create jobs, increase the value of the cedis in people's pocket.
All right, so watch the full version of the Executive Lounge tomorrow at 5 p.m. on the Joy News channel. Now, moving on, the Ghana Private Road Transport Union, GPRTU, has dismissed claims by a section of the public that there is an increase in lorry fares by 15%. Checks with the Secretary of the GPRTU at the Kwame Nkrumah Circle, Ni Okaikwe, revealed the commercial drivers will come out with a final decision on Monday, March 13. He spoke to Charles Aite, and meanwhile, some commercial drivers are saying that they're expecting government to give them a leeway to increase transport fares.
Because we haven't started increasing the fares at the station because we want to see what the government will say first about the fuel increases. During the previous government, when the fuel prices increased, we also increased accordingly, but we haven't increased the fares. Even after petrol prices increased, we haven't increased our fares, and it's destroying our business. We will be increasing our prices soon because the drivers at different places are increasing. We are waiting on the government. If they don't tell us anything from Monday, we will increase the prices.
Transport fares we haven't increased our fares. In fact, it's really worrying our business here. So we are begging the government to intervene. The fuel prices have increased, but we haven't increased our prices. So if government can step in, it will really help us. Right now, we are running our businesses at a loss. Now, many people are losing interest in being drivers.
Interest being free
Yes, we've heard, but since we haven't heard from the regional executives, we can't also increase our fares. At first, fuel was sold at 15 Ghana cedis, but now it's 21 Ghana cedis. But still, we haven't increased our fares. It makes it difficult for us to operate. We hope government will step in and solve the situation.
We want to wait for the government to make a statement about this before deciding on whether to increase fares or not.
As a
taxi driver, now that the fuel prices have increased, I also start increasing my fares from today.
So these are some members of the GPRTU debunking claims that there has been actually a 15% increase in lorry fares. Now moving on, the Kayaye menace continues to deny many girls the opportunity of pursuing a dignified life. Justice Bedu has visited the northern regional capital Tamale to meet Najat Abdul Razak, the woman teaching former Kayaye girls how to weave clothes to get them an attractive livelihood.
Weaving and knitting, one strand at a time. Meet the girls shunning Kayaye for a new life making clothes. I'm on the outskirts of Tamale in a largely Muslim suburb. Najat Abdul Razak started this center 5 years ago, hoping to bring back girls who had gone into Kayaye home.
I want to give the girls a skill. With those skills, when she gets married, they won't depend on their husbands. If their husbands don't give them money, they become a burden, so the men abuse them. With this, they can be self-sufficient.
Many of these girls have come here as their last resort. Some escaped years of abuse doing Kayaye, others told by family members to get married against their will.
When I went to do Kayaye, it was hell. Water to bath was a problem. Sometimes food to eat was a problem. You can go to the market and walk the whole day and not get anything.
Most of them come from surrounding villages and have to walk up to 2 hours a day to come here. Rahma Fusaini is one of the girls who said no to getting married when she failed to make it into high school after SHS. Like her, many of her friends here hope what they are learning would give them a second shot at life.
Were you ever told by your mother to get married?
Yes, I've been told by my mother that I refused. I came out from school without getting the fees to pay. We decided he began to tell me that I should look for a certain man who can take care of me and get married. But I refused. So I can get married because I don't have anything to do. When I get married to that man, what work will I be doing?
These are all the handiwork of girls who otherwise have been forced to bigger Ghanaian cities like Accra and Kumasi to do Kayaye, or even at home be forced into marriages against their will. But the girls I've met here are just a few of the many in Ghana today who now face the real threat of a lack of access to basic education or quality health care compared with their age mates elsewhere. Individual efforts like what has created this venture here abound in many parts of Ghana, but it will take a conscious effort from government to create better opportunities for other girls to build their lives. Justice Bedu, Joy News, Tamale.
Down from the northern region back to Accra, this is where we draw down the curtains on the program this afternoon. Many thanks for your company, and let's meet again next Monday. Meantime, have a great weekend. Good afternoon.